Let's look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video, and welcome back to the fourth part of our Detroit Lions 2022 mock offseason. Now, so far in the first couple of parts, we've gone over the coaching changes, gone over Deuce Staley taking over as the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator. We've gone over the re-signings of free agents, bringing back guys like Jalen Reeves-Maybin, Charles Harris, Tracy Walker, Jack Fox, and many other key impact players. And we've also gone over free agency signings, bringing in guys like Leighton Vander Esch, Jabril Peppers, Marcus Williams, and many more starting caliber players. And today we are doing the most fun part of the mock off season, the part of the mock off season that everybody wants, and the part of the actual off season that everybody is looking forward to, and that is, of course, the 2022 NFL Draft. Now, in this video, we are going to go over the mock draft. We are going to go over a mock draft for the Detroit Lions, and it's going to be based, of course, off of the three previous parts, based off what our coaches are going to like, based off what our coaches may be looking for, and our new offensive coordinator may be looking for his offense. We're also going to be looking at, obviously, based off of free agency and re-signings, based off team needs, and, of course, player evaluations. But with that being said, and with all that out of the way, let's get right into the 2022 NFL Draft. Now, the Detroit Lions were on the clock at number 2. Evan Neal went number 1 overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that left the Detroit Lions sitting at the number 2 position with 3 big targets on the board: Kayvon Thibodeaux, Aiden Hutchinson, and Kyle Hamilton. Those are the 3 prospects that the Lions should be looking at with the number 2 overall pick, and those are the 3 guys that the Lions should be targeting. If they get one of those 3 guys with their first pick in the NFL Draft, whether it be at number 2 or whether they trade down a couple spots, it would be a successful first overall pick. Now, with all 3 players still being on the board, the New York Giants offered up a trade for the number 2 overall selection in exchange for their number 5 and their number 7. Now, with 3 players on the board still that the Lions were still looking to target, I felt pretty comfortable trading down 4 spots, right? Odds were that, all 3 of them were not going to go back to back to back, and odds were that we were still going to get one of our high profile targets with the number 5 overall pick. So we did. We went down the board and down the board. Aiden Hutchinson came off the board, Kayvon Thibodeaux came off the board, and then at number 4, Andrew Booth came off the board to go to the New York Jets. And that gave the Detroit Lions an opportunity to draft Kyle Hamilton at the 5th overall spot. And that was the plan going forward. That was the idea, and that was my biggest hope moving into that selection. But just when I was about to make the pick, another NFL team called, the NFL team holding the number 6 overall pick. And that team wanted to move up 1 spot to take their guy on the board. And they offered, for the 5th overall pick, their 6th overall pick, a 2023 second round pick, a 2023 third round pick, and a 2023 7th round pick. Now, this team was the Carolina Panthers, and they were worried that the Detroit Lions were going to end up taking the number 1 quarterback off the board in this year's draft. Little did they know, I wasn't looking for a quarterback at this spot, but the Carolina Panthers saw a guy that they liked, saw their quarterback, and decided to make the move and trade up. And so they did. They gave up their 6th overall pick, their 2nd, 3rd, and 7th round picks for next year to move up 1 spot and take Matt Corral. And the Detroit Lions moved down just a singular pick and still ended up with, in my opinion, the only generational talent in this draft class. Yes, Kyle Hamilton is a Detroit Lion with the number 6 overall pick. He is a true generational talent. He is a player that we haven't seen since, I don't know, Sean Taylor maybe, a player and a prospect of the likes we haven't seen for decades, if ever. I mean, he's 6'4", 220 pounds, super productive, super fast. You don't usually see prospects of Kyle Hamilton's caliber. Kyle Hamilton Hamilton, obviously the safety out of Notre Dame, looked at as the true generational talent in this year's draft class. Stands at 6'4", 290 pounds as a safety from Notre Dame. He is arguably the best player in the draft, and I think you can say for certain that he is the only player in this draft class to have 0 red flags. No injury concerns, no off the field issues. He's big, fast, strong, super athletic, super productive, and he's a good leader. There are no red flags. He's not a locker room issue. He's not an off the field issue. He has no injury concerns. He has 0 red flags, and I think he's the only prospect you can say that about in this year's class. Kyle Hamilton, in his 3 years at Notre Dame, has totaled over 138 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 8 interceptions, including one that he took back in his freshman year for a pick 6, and has 16 passes defended. And when you look at those stats, you're going to say, okay, that's some really good statistics, but it's not anything mind-boggling, right? At 4 interceptions his freshman year, he didn't get tested that often. He wasn't tested down the boundary. He had 2 interceptions in the Florida State game last year, and the second one, he started on the complete opposite hash, went all the way across the field, and got a toe tap interception on the sidelines from Florida State. That play is a play that you're not supposed to make. That is a ridiculous play and shows just how good and how much range Kyle Hamilton has as a safety. He can absolutely transform this secondary. And you go into next season with a secondary composed of Jeff Okudah, Amani Oruwariye, AJ Parker in the slot, Jerry Jacobs and Ifeatu Melifonwu as your backups, Tracy Walker as your third safety, Kyle Hamilton as your second safety, Marcus Williams as your first safety, and Jabril Peppers as your fourth. That is an elite secondary. That secondary is going to be so difficult to pass on, and the Lions still have an opportunity to upgrade pass rush with the next pick in their class, but we will get to that in just a minute. Ending off with Kyle Hamilton, phenomenal generational prospect, arguably the best player in the class, and the only reason he fell to 6 was because of positional value. If the Lions walk away with Kyle Hamilton, they are winning the first round of the NFL draft. But that was not the only pick in the first round of this year's NFL draft, as we had another pick with the 7th overall spot. Now at the 7th overall spot, another team called up to trade. Yes, there are 3 trades inside the top 10, and the Lions still get arguably the best player in this year's class. Now with the 7th overall spot, the Los Angeles Chargers decided to trade up, and they were looking for a big time player. They were looking for a big impact guy to take their team from borderline playoffs to guaranteed playoff positioning. So they traded up to the 7th overall pick, giving up the 17th pick, the 48th pick, and a 2023 third round selection. So that being the case, we moved all the way down to 17. We sat and we sat and we sat. And we got to 17 where the Chargers originally had their selection, and there was one player on the board that really stuck out to me. He's a pass rusher from Michigan. He's a guy that had a career year just last season, and he had really good production along with having incredible upside and a huge ceiling. And that player may not be Aiden Hutchinson, may not be the Michigan man you were hoping for, but we got a Michigan pass rusher in the end in Michigan's David Ojabo. Now, David Ojabo stands at 6'5", 250 pounds, and plays the edge rusher position for the Michigan Wolverines. He had really good production in his second season as a Michigan Wolverine, and had really good production for it really being his only year of playing time, right? He didn't really play a whole lot 2 years ago, got his first starting time this year and made the absolute most. Had 35 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 11 sacks, 3 passes defended, 5 forced fumbles, and 1 fumble recovery. He has great production and high upside, and the only real red flag about David Ojabo is the 1-year wonder storyline. He was only productive 1 year at Michigan, but only had 1 year to be productive. I think he could go as early as top 15, and if he falls to the 17th overall pick, if the Lions are in a position to get him with their second first-round pick in this draft, I think he's a player that absolutely could and should be on the Lions draft board. Now, going all the way down to 28, because we do have that first-round pick from the Los Angeles Rams, there was one player that I was really focusing on. 2 players if you want to include a quarterback, because Malik Willis was still on the board, and as you all know, I'm a big fan of Malik Willis, but I did not expect this player to fall as far as he did, and his impact for the Georgia Bulldogs over the past couple of seasons has been immense. So with the 28th overall pick, I decided to beef up the defensive line yet again and take Jordan Davis, the 6'6", 340-pound defensive tackle from from the University of Georgia. Now, you're going to look at Jordan Davis and say, okay, there are some red flags, but there's a lot of upside. He only really plays 2 downs every single drive, or not every single drive. He only really plays first and second down. He doesn't have huge statistical numbers for himself and as an individual, but you look at what role he played for the Georgia defense a year ago, and the role he's played for the Georgia defense ever since he stepped foot on Georgia's campus. He's been an elite player in college football, and there was even a dark horse race for him to make it into the top 10 of the Heisman voting simply off of his impact alone to the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, Jordan Davis, as I said, stands at 6'6", 340 pounds, and plays the nose tackle position. He doesn't have a lot of individual stats and doesn't really play every single down of every single drive of the football game, but when he's on the field, he has a huge amount of effort, has a really high motor when he is on the field. It's just a matter of somebody that big cannot play that many snaps without a break in between. And in the bigger games like the SEC Championship and the National Championship, Jordan Davis actually played more snaps on third down and did get a higher snap amount when the games mattered the most and when the Georgia defense needed him to step up. He was more than willing to do so. He said that he's working on his conditioning this year, trying to be able to stay on the field longer and stay on the field and make more of an impact in the NFL than he did with the Georgia Bulldogs. But if we get even a similar amount of production from Jordan Davis in the NFL, it's going to be worth a late first-round pick. Now, I mentioned he doesn't have any individual statistics, but he does have team statistics to back up his impact. With Jordan Davis on the field for the Georgia Bulldogs last season, they averaged allowing just 2.7 yards per play, and the opposing offense only averaged 3.5 yards per attempt every single play. Now, they also had a QB contact percentage of 40%, meaning on 40% of defensive snaps that Jordan Davis was on the field, Georgia hit the quarterback. And that is an unreal number. That is super, super high. That means out of every 10 rushes, 4 times they got to the quarterback. And that is why the Georgia defense led the NCAA as a defense. That's why they were the #1 defense in college football this year, is in large part to Jordan Davis. And Jordan Davis is not the only reason they were good, but when you look at the stats with him, again, 2.7 yards per play allowed and a 40% QB contact percentage, opposed to the plays where he was out, where Georgia as a defense allowed 4.1 yards per play, almost a yard and a half more every single time the offense attempted the ball, and having 5.9 yards per attempt, again, almost a yard and a half extra when Jordan Davis isn't on the field, and their QB contact percentage went down by 6% to just 34% of the time. So Jordan Davis, his impact for a defense is incredible. You look at just the stats with Jordan Davis on the field, the stats with Jordan Davis off the field, it is really hard to make an argument that he isn't worth at least a late first-round pick. And I think the impact he can have on this defense with Aleem McNeil and Levi Onwuzurike can really, Jordan Davis's role is going to be to eat up double teams, to penetrate the pocket, kind of like Aleem McNeil, but he's just bigger and more powerful. And I think he can replace Michael Brockers in this defensive line. And I think for the future, once Michael Brockers retires, you're going to have Jordan Davis, Aleem McNeil, and Levi Onwuzurike all entering their primes at the same time, all being super, super impactful defensive linemen that maybe don't rack up all the statistical numbers, but push the pocket, penetrate the pocket, and allow our edge rushers like David Ojabo, the Aquara brothers, and of course Charles Harris to get the statistical numbers for themselves. Now, I know that we went defense 3 times in a row. We had 3 first-round picks and addressed the defense every single time, twice on the defensive line and once in the secondary. And I think this is the role, and I think this is the strategy that Brad Holmes is going to go into the NFL draft with. He needs to upgrade the defense, right? Free agency kind of fixed the offense, got him a few weapons, and got Jared Goff what he needs to succeed. The defense has some holes, especially with all the injuries we faced last year in the secondary. Kyle Hamilton being a generational talent and being the best player available makes too much sense. The Lions didn't have a great pass rush last year, so they addressed it with David Ojabo. The Lions even had struggles stopping the run at certain points last season, and they fixed that, both the pass rushing and the run stopping ability, with Jordan Davis at 28. But they're going to address the offense with their first pick in the second round. They didn't have to wait long from 28 to 34, and with the 34th overall pick, Malik Willis was still on the board. And I know people are going to be mad because Malik Willis is a quarterback, and Malik Willis should not go with a second-round pick because you lose that 5th-year option and all of that. In my opinion, Malik Willis was the best player on the board at that time. Really, when you get to the 34th overall spot, it's, that second tier of edge rushers, that first tier of running backs, that second tier of wide receivers, or a quarterback. And I think a quarterback is the most impactful position in that group. Yes, you're losing a year on that 5th-year option with Malik Willis in the 2nd round, but at the same time, if Malik Willis is that good, you're going to re-sign him long-term anyway. In 1 year under that rookie contract should not make that big of a difference, because the Lions have enough cap space to make up for that once Jared Goff's contract is off the books. So I know people are going to be mad that it's a quarterback and that it's in the 2nd round, but sitting there at 34, Malik Willis was simply the best player and the best talents available. At Liberty, Malik Willis totaled over 5,176 passing yards, 48 passing touchdowns, and 18 interceptions. And on top of that, had 2,100 rushing yards and 29 rushing touchdowns. He has elite traits, elite athleticism, a phenomenal release, every single physical aspect of his game you are going to love, and he needs some time to sit. He's going to sit behind Jared Goff for a year, and he's going to have to sit, develop, and learn. But if Malik Willis hits his ceiling, he's going to be the best quarterback in the NFL, and there's no doubt about that in my mind. So that being said, Malik Willis is the pick at 34. And then you move down to pick 48, where, of course, there are still some pretty good running backs on the board. There are still a couple wide receivers left on the board that you could take that are kind of more well-known across the country. But there was another trading opportunity as the New England Patriots offered for the 48th overall pick, the 54th, and the 85. And the entire trade is on the screen right now, is the 48th pick and the 176th pick for pick 54 and pick 85. You move down about 6 spots in the NFL draft, but you obviously turn that 167 into a top 100 pick, and there was nobody really on the board at this point that I wanted that badly at the 45th overall spot that I didn't believe would be there at 54. We move down to 54, and again, this one is going to seem a little bit weird because of the David Njoku signing, but I think Trey McBride is the pick here at 54. Trey McBride is a 6'4", 260-pound tight end out of Colorado State. He has good size and has the upside of an elite wide receiver. Had 1,100 yards as a senior at Colorado State and had over 2,100 yards and 10 touchdowns in his entire career. He is a great receiving weapon for Jared Goff, and he can kind of fill in and push for that tight end 3 spot. I know it's like a decent, it's a top 55 pick, a top 54 pick in the NFL draft. Why would you use it on a depth tight end? He was the best player available. David Njoku is kind of a 1-year patch. Trey McBride can be the future backup behind TJ Hockenson. And again, those two with their receiving abilities are going to be really hard to cover. And when you run 12 personnel, when you run 2 tight end personnels, or even 3 tight end personnels in the 2022 season, you might not find a better tight end room than TJ Hockenson, David Njoku, Trey McBride, and obviously Brock Wright competing for that, probably at this point, a practice squad spot on the Detroit Lions. All right, now that we're outside the top 50, we're going to move a little bit quicker as we are almost 20 minutes in and we are not even to the 60th overall pick. So at 66, Kyren Williams was on the board and he was my favorite player available. 5'9", 195-pound running back from the University of Notre Dame. He has speed, elite contact balance, and has a receiving ability. He has 2,800 yards and 31 touchdowns in his 2 starting years at Notre Dame. He's a home run hitter, a home run threat, and just a big play guy. I think you pair him with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. That is a really good trio of running backs, plus obviously you have Craig Reynolds and Jamar Jefferson to back them up. Kyren Williams at 66 gives you an offensive weapon, a home run hitter on the offensive side of the ball, and a guy that can score for you in the blink of an eye. Now at pick 85, I wanted to address the secondary, move back to the defensive side of the ball, and Kobe Bryant was on the board. Kobe Bryant, the 6'1", 190-pound cornerback from Cincinnati, the Jim Thorpe Award winner as the nation's best defensive back in 2021. He's a lot of experience, was targeted a lot as Sauce Gardner was across from him and was not going to be tested as often. So he got thrown out a lot, has a lot of experience, and is very, very tested. And he showed that he can stand up right against the best receivers in college football. He, in his career, totaled 170 tackles, 35 passes defended, 9 interceptions, and 4 forced fumbles. Those numbers tell me that he's not afraid to tackle, he's not afraid to hit you, and he's very, very sticky in coverage. And again, the tape tells you the exact same thing. At pick 85, the Lions address the secondary, and you may say, okay, our cornerback room is super deep. Why are we addressing corner again in the first round in the top 100? And to that, I say we were down to one cornerback a year ago. Our cornerbacks to end the season were Ifeatu Melifonwu, Will Harris, the strong safety, and AJ Parker in the slot. We were down to one boundary cornerback a year ago, and Kobe Bryant could have made a huge difference on the Lions defense and in the Lions secondary had he been available. So you get another high quality defensive back to add to that super young, super talented secondary, and you move on knowing that your secondary and your football team is better for it. At the 98th overall pick, Darian Beavers, the 6'3", 242-pound linebacker out of Cincinnati, was the pick. He has really good size, really productive at college. In his 4 years at Cincinnati, totaled 230 tackles, 27.5 tackles for loss, 13.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, 5 passes defended, 3 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. Again, just a guy that was super productive in college and a guy that, you know, with the 98th overall pick, could be a potential future linebacker if Alex Anzalone doesn't want to return after a couple of years, or, you know, if injuries decimate the linebacker position again. Darian Beavers can step up and be a good number 6, can be a guy that's on the practice squad, and maybe even push Derek Barnes for that last roster spot as a linebacker. I believe the Lions kept 6 linebackers on their roster a year ago for the inside linebacker position. Darian Beavers can be that number 6 guy and be a pretty good player at the same exact time. And then I'm doubling up at linebacker because I think this class is really good for depth linebackers and special teams talents. And we're going to go with DeMarco Jackson at the 181st spot. DeMarco Jackson, a player that the Lions are working with at the Senior Bowl as we speak. A 6'1", 230-pound linebacker from Appalachian State. He's been healthy his entire career. He's very productive and is a do-it-all linebacker. In his career at Appalachian State, he has totaled over 291 tackles, 35 tackles for loss, 11.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, and 14 passes defended. He does all of it. He can cover, he can tackle, he can blitz, he can rush, he can do everything. And I think he can be our next Jalen Reeves-Maven. I think he can be our next special teams ace for the Detroit Lions. And at pick 181, that is not a bad value for a guy that can compete on special teams and make a big impact. And then I didn't want to exit this draft without addressing the wide receiver position, so I did it twice with the last 2 picks in the 200s. With pick 218, you get Jalen Naylor, the speedy wide receiver from Michigan State. 6 foot, 190 pounds, is, you know, again, just speedy, has a deep threat, can be that kind of big play guy that gets 1-2 targets a game in the future. Has time to develop behind a pretty, heavily reloaded wide receiver core for the Detroit Lions. He, again, had 1,454 yards and 12 touchdowns in his really 2 years of production, really his 3 years of production at Michigan State. And then with the very last pick in the draft, with pick number 233, Ty Freifogel, the 6'2", 205-pound wide receiver from Indiana, was still on the board. He's big, fast, and has some really good yard after the catch ability. Really, I'm basing it off of his 2020 tape. He was really good in 2020. He had, in his 8 games that he played, obviously only 8 games played in the Big Ten, but in those 8 games, he had 37 receptions for 721 yards and 7 touchdowns. If the season was normal, he would have had well over 1,000 yards, well over 10 touchdowns. He was looking really good versus everybody, even Ohio State and, the first round picks that they had at corner, even against, Sean Wade, who was a top, I think he went in the 5th round of the NFL draft last year. He cooked everybody with solid quarterback play, and he really struggled without that good quarterback play last year. But based off of his 2020 tape, I think he's very much worth a pick in a late round flyer with the 233rd pick. So with that being said, that is your mock draft. It's a lot of players, it's a lot of names, and a lot of statistics, and a lot of trades. So you walk out of this with your future QB1, your generational safety, your new pass rusher, your new defensive lineman, a home run hitting running back, a couple late round flyers at wide receiver, some really good depth linebackers, not to mention a really, really good receiving tight end. And the best part is what you get next year in the NFL draft. Next year, with these trades happening, the Detroit Lions go into the draft with 2 first-round picks, theirs and the Rams. They go in with 3 second-round picks, theirs, Carolina's, and the Los Angeles Chargers. They go in with two 2 third-rounders being theirs in Carolina. They go in with 5 picks on day 3, including a 6th-round pick from Denver and a 7th-round selection from Carolina. That draft class is going to be insane with all the amount of top 100 picks. That is what? That is 7 picks in the first 3 rounds alone. And if the Detroit Lions continue to draft like they did last year and they continue to draft like they did in this mock draft, their team is going to be set for a very long time with those picks. With all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about the mock draft. I think this mock draft improved the team tremendously. We do have an undrafted free agency class as well that will come out tomorrow. Again, this video is getting a little bit long and I don't want to keep you all for more than 25 to 30 minutes. Unfortunately, that is what it is today. I think you guys will enjoy this mock draft nonetheless, but tune in tomorrow for the undrafted free agency class, potential trades, and of course, depth charts and competition battles with this new look Lions. But with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know what you think about the mock draft in the comments below. With all that being said, though, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions!